and welcome back to my channel. We're having a gorgeous thunderstorm outside. Ooh, I thought it'd be fun to be here in the front room when you can hear the rain and the thunder and review our latest stack of picture books from the library. For my last haul of picture books, I was feeling very like school's starting soon. I wanted to get a lot of nonfiction to try to engage my daughter in some more nonfiction and make sure that she's learning since she's not really going to preschool anymore. I've got 15 books here to talk about. Some are sort of social studies, biographies, some are science focused. We've got some books on like gender and queer representation, and there are one or two fiction books, but it sort of fits into this category and I'll talk about why. So the first three books, which are sadly due back tomorrow, are part of this I Am series that are biographies. So I got Marie Curie, Rosa Parks, and Leonardo da Vinci, three of my favorite historical people. Ooh, this thunder, it's really coming down out there. So in each of these books, the format is kind of the same. The art is very cute and cartoon style, which is really helpful for engaging my 3-year-old. She has loved all these books and asked for them repeatedly. Now, one thing that the kids have found confusing is that as the characters grow up, the main characters stay drawn in like this chibi style, like with a big head, and they're like tiny kids. They stay little kids, whereas all the other characters grow up. This has been a source of confusion. My daughter has kind of thought that she was like a little girl when doing these things because they keep drawing her like a little girl even when Marie Curie grows up and is an adult. I understand why they're doing it. It makes it easier for the main characters to sort of stand out from the crowd, but that may be something you kind of have to explain to your kids. My nephew was really bothered by it, and they also are like, he's such an old boy, because in the Leonardo da Vinci one they have him in his gray beard even when they're telling a story about him exploring a cave as a little boy. That's just something to be aware of, and you might have to explain it to your kids. I don't think it invalidates these books at all. As far as the storytelling goes, they've done a good job finding some of the more interesting moments in the characters' lives. The books are leaving out some of the darker aspects of these characters' lives. You learn about the radium girls working with Marie Curie, but it doesn't go into what happened to those radium girls or how Marie and her husband died as a result of her scientific experiments. And I think that for a 3-year-old, that's probably appropriate and fine. For older readers, I think these books may be sort of too infantilizing, but for kids that are just starting to read biographies, I think that's okay. Another issue that I kind of have with the I Am Rosa Parks book, I think they did a good job telling her story. This is actually a great book kind of explaining race relations and segregation in a way that like a 3-year-old can understand. And I've talked in other videos about how important it is to start talking about racism and racial inequality even at a young age, because kids are picking up and sensitive to these messages from media starting around age 2 or 3. We've seen the research that they are already exhibiting racial preferences by age 2 or 3. So we want to make sure we're explicitly talking about and counteracting these messages. So, they showed a difference between like a black schoolhouse and a white schoolhouse, and this was not fair and this was unequal. And I think that's been a really good illustration for explaining it. The one qualm I kind of have with this book is that at the end it's very much presented as like, oh, we just lost power. Damn, this storm is legit. I'm gonna keep going now. At the end, they definitely present it as like, okay, racism is solved now because of the bus boycott. And so I've just sort of added to the end with my daughter, like, this is something we're still fighting for. And when Mommy and Aunt Sylvia go to the protests, it's still our responsibility to fight to make the world a more fair place. The storm is out of hand. Oh my God. Oh, I thought it burned out my light, but my light's still okay. Okay, then we got another biography, Joan Proctor Dragon Doctor, the woman who loved reptiles. And this one my daughter hasn't connected to, unfortunately. This is one I think that would be better for an older reader. So I think it's a really cute book about a woman. She was just fascinated with reptiles, studying them and being like one of the first curators at the London Zoo for the reptile house. Language is just a little bit higher, and because it isn't drawn in that little cutie cartoon style, I don't know, my daughter just hasn't quite connected to this book in the same way. but it then might appeal to older readers who feel like the other books are like too babyish. It's sort of a one-off book. This one actually is fiction. I was interested in this book because my daughter is both Jewish and Korean, And I was sort of just looking at lists of like multicultural families and representation. And this is an older book. It's from the 90s. It feels very 90s. The art is 90s. I think he's half Mexican and half Jewish. And so he's asked to bring a type of food to class that shows his heritage. And he's kind of having a hard time. Like, do I choose? His parents work in a bakery where they sell both bagels and pan dulce, and he is having a hard time like trying to pick between the two, and then he realizes like jalapeno bagels are like the perfect marriage of the two cultures. Recipe for jalapeno bagels in the back. And my daughter is a sucker for any kind of book about baked goods. The next book is We Are Water Protectors. This was written by Indigenous people involved with the fight against the Keystone XL pipeline. It's definitely told in the form of myth, which is really cool, by referring to the pipeline as a black snake that will destroy the land, spoil the water, poison plants and animals, wreck everything in its path. My 3-year-old loves this book. It's so beautiful. Look at this. And it's got this moral message, you know, we have a responsibility to stand up for the 4-legged, the 2-legged, the plants, trees, rivers, and lakes. I absolutely love this book and find it so moving. It ends sort of open-ended with this, you know, we are the water protectors, we stand, the black snake is in for the fight of its life. So they haven't declared victory on the snake, right, because the Keystone XL pipeline is still definitely in the process of being built and being challenged in court. And so this book doesn't really get into like those nitty-gritty like facts of the case, but it's telling it from like this mythological perspective, which is really cool. And this book is absolutely beautiful. It came out this year, and I definitely think that everyone should own it. Okay. The next book was another 5-star read that my daughter absolutely loves. She's asked about this one more than any other, which is The Sad Little Fact. This is pure fiction. Again, I think it kind of goes along with these other books because it's an allegorical tale. So it reminds me of The Water Protectors. It's like a myth about how the truth is distorted. So there was once a fact, a little fact, a sad little fact. No one took it seriously. They called it names. Because of its insistence on truth, the authorities come along and they bury it deep underground. Kind of addressing the way our society politicizes truth. I find it very moving. As a person who's living through like the dark times, like the authorities start manufacturing lies and the world grew dark. Like, this feels very therapeutic to me, this page. And then the promise that someday, you know, if we stick to the facts and we unearth the facts, we can make the world a better place. So while this is fiction, I think it has a really important message, and it goes along with the themes of many of these books. The next book is It Feels Good to Be Yourself, a book about gender identity. Me and my niece who live here are non-binary. We go by they, them pronouns. My daughter and nephew were frequently just getting everybody's pronouns confused. And so I really love this book. I wanted to start being able to talk to my kid about binary and non-binary people. And I think this book does it so well. This has been such a helpful tool. It's just presented matter-of-factly. This is Ruthie. She's a transgender girl. That means when she was born, everyone thought she was a boy until she grew a little older, old enough to tell everyone she's actually a girl. Girl is Ruthie's gender identity. And then they explain what a cisgender boy is, and then they explain what it means to be non-binary. There's a million different ways to be binary or non-binary. Your gender feelings can change. You know, when you're born, people make a guess about what your gender is going to be, and they make that guess usually based on what your body looks like. But those guesses aren't always correct, and it's okay to tell them, I know you think I'm a boy, but really I feel like a girl. And the most important thing is that your feelings of gender are real, and no matter what your gender identity is, you are okay exactly the way you are, and you are loved. Trans parents or parents of trans kids are going to seek out this book, but really I wish that everyone would seek out this book to make sure you're raising a kid who isn't transphobic, because the dominant culture is transphobic. And so if you're allowing your kids to only get their information on gender from media, they're going to grow up with transphobic attitudes unless you're like explicitly counteracting that. So this is a book that I would definitely recommend to help do that. And going along with that, we have the Big Book of Families, and I love this book. It starts off by saying, you know, Once upon a time, most families in books look like this, and it's a white family with a mom and dad, a boy, a girl, a cat, and a dog who live in a house with a picket fence, you know? And this book is explicitly counteracting that narrative, not just in terms of race, like the families are all very diverse, but also some children have two mommies or daddies. Some people live in small apartments or don't have a house to live in. It talks about, you know, some kids are homeschooled, some kids go to school. So it's just sort of challenging all these like default assumptions we have about what families are supposed to look like. There's diversity. There are many diverse kinds of families. I definitely recommend that one. Okay, the next 4 books are all by Jason Chin, because I found out about this picture book artist and I thought his art was so beautiful and gorgeous that I just reserved all of them from the library at once. Only like 2 out of the 4 books were really connected with my daughter because the others are too high level for her. The 2 that didn't really work out because they're really just gonna be appropriate for older readers are Coral Reefs and Redwoods. These 2 follow a very similar format. The text isn't telling a story is the problem for a kid my daughter's age. The text is very informational, very nonfiction, and written at a very high level, like I would say middle school. The images show something sort of fantastical, so like it's just a girl who's in a library, but all of a sudden like a coral reef comes up around her. So that's really cool, but the pictures don't really go along with the text. The text, again, is just informational. So my daughter will be kind of interested for a minute or 2 while we're flipping through the pictures, but then when I go to read the text, it was kind of going. The one that did connect, even though it is in that same style, is Grand Canyon, because this book has like an added little hook in that it's got these cutouts. Fossilized rocks or like features in the rock can reveal what the Grand Canyon was like hundreds of millions of years ago. And just this like cutout page flippy was enough to hold my daughter's attention through the whole book. And then at the very end, even though the text again was like very high level, and I don't know how much of that she was really able to understand and absorb, because there were the cutouts, she was interested. And then at the end, there's this gorgeous reveal of the Grand Canyon, and she like audibly gasped when we got here. And I was like, whoa, cool, I want to go there. When she's just a little bit older, it's going to be an even better choice. All of these books, you know, are really for older kids, probably like 8, 9, 10. The other one that she really likes is Gravity, because this one is much simpler. There's very few words per page, and it's really just conveying the concept of gravity. So gravity makes objects fall to earth, and it talks about without gravity, everything would float away. And so it's exploring these concepts on a very big picture level, and I think even babies would like this book. So you could get this for someone with like an 8 or 9 month old on up, and they would enjoy it and find the art beautiful, and my daughter loves this one. This is another book that also is like great for babies, and I wish I had this when she was like between 1 and 3 years old. I feel like now she's almost a little bit too old for it. But it's called Here We Are, Notes for Living on Planet Earth. It's like speaking to a baby and explaining the deal to them. So, well, hello, welcome to this planet. We call it Earth. It is the big globe floating in space on which we live. By this point, I think that most of the concepts in this book are familiar to my daughter. Like, she's already learned them. Like, there are animals. So I think she's actually a little too old for the book, although she still loves sitting and listening to it, and maybe she's like picking up some new vocabulary from it. You know, it's saying like, you may not be able to speak yet either, even though your head is filled with questions. Be patient. You'll learn how to use words soon enough. Well, she's been talking for a long time. Even though this book seems like it's geared towards babies, I still think like your older toddlers will enjoy it. The last one I actually got for my niece. It's a children's illustrated atlas, because my niece doesn't know where anything is, because in Texas they never teach kids geography. I encountered that a lot when I was teaching here in Texas schools. There's like absolutely no geography standards. It's all become reading and math focused, because those are the things that are tested every year. Unfortunately, I think that it's a little bit too babyish to appeal to a high schooler, and it's too abstract for my daughter. So I think this is a great atlas, probably for, again, like older kids age, like 7 to 10 year olds. But for right now, it's not really connecting with anyone in our house currently. I would love to find an atlas that's more geared towards like toddlers and more simplified, and also one that's maybe more geared towards teens. So if anyone has recommendations for those, leave those in the comments. I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope that the thunder was a nice added bonus. We've been in a drought, so it's been very, very welcome. I'll be back soon with more picture book reviews. I just ordered a whole bunch of Halloween and Rosh Hashanah books from the library. So when those come in, we will be doing a fall holiday picture book wrap up. Please please comment if you found this helpful, or if you have other recommendations of books in these kinds of categories to recommend, and subscribe so that you won't miss any more videos. And I'll see you next time. Bye.